Okay, welcome back to Hanging with Mangg. And today we're playing Metal Slug 3. Because for some reason I own it on Steam. I have no idea why. So I'll just die a lot while I talk about stuff. And anyways, so this week on the channel was pretty light. There was really nothing exciting going on. I apologize. I don't think I uploaded anything Tuesday. Although I'm not sure I remember why. I don't think I did anything Tuesday. Probably not. I don't know why I didn't upload. And then I didn't upload anything yesterday because I was downtown, Pokemon hunting, all that kind of good stuff, so. Yeah, so it was pretty much just some Zelda, some Big Bow Edition, and then move on. Hopefully next week I'll get to the top 10 list that I want to do, and then maybe some other good stuff. Yeah, so really not much to say about that. On Monday I did upload the creature roundup for exploring the Cthulhu mythos, which seems well enough received. So that just leaves the Cthulhu mythos in film, Cthulhu mythos in Bloodborne, and then I guess the Q&A. So maybe just like a month and a half. And then the real work begins. Yeah. Okay. So on Monday, we had, I think it was my friend's birthday. So, you know, if it's your birthday and it's game night, you get to pick what we play. That's kind of the general consensus. So we gave it the choice to him. And he was really itching to play some Jungle Speed. So we played some Jungle Speed. Which is it's a fine game, although I don't know, I was rusty or something. I was just so slow, and it was just like, ugh. All the VR, my eyes are just shot. It's all sorts of shit. So I don't know. And then we played Cosmic Encounter, 5-player game. I think it was 5. Maybe it was 6. You know, it was so long ago. Who remembers such things? But anyways. And I was Fido, I believe. Who is basically a dog alien. And pretty much whenever an encounter ends, the Fido player can take one of the cards that was used in the encounter but discarded, and he can pick it up, and he has to offer it to somebody. He has to offer it to one other player. And that player can either accept it, so they can just take the card, or they can just refuse it, which means that Fido gets to keep it. If they take the card, then Fido either gets to take a ship back from the warp or draw a new card from the deck. So it's pretty much just, you know, it's not just, okay, well, I'm going to just, you know, there's options there, which is cool, because you could just take the best card and hope that they refuse it, but they won't refuse it. So, you know, you could take the worst card and give it to them, in which case, you know, they'll probably refuse it, which means that you get it, but you don't want the worst card, generally. So you want, like, a middle range card so that they'll probably take it, but doesn't help them too much, and then you get a fresh card from the deck, which could be all sorts of good stuff. You know, you could draw up the 40 attack or some crazy shit, but there's also, you could, you know, sometimes you want a specific card that maybe that isn't very good for them, but could be very good for you on your hand, so that can happen. Or, you know, if you're working some sort of an alliance thing, you could offer them a really good card and they'll take it, so that, you know, it kind of benefits the both of you if you're in an alliance, which is kind of what happened in that game. You know, I'm slowly opening up to the idea of joined victories. I still haven't done one, like, ever. But I'm opening up to the idea, because you don't win too often. It's difficult to win Cosmic Encounter. It's very difficult to win on your own. So I'm not completely against the idea of a joint victory. It's better than losing. I think originally I thought, no, losing is better, but I'm turning around. I'm growing as a person. So it was going somewhat well for a game of Cosmic. You know, I always do fairly well in Cosmic. There's never been a time where I just completely bombed and I was at 0 colonies and it was just terrible. And, oh god. I'm generally at the forefront. You know, I'm leading the charge. But the problem arose right towards the end of the game. We had a guy who, he was not, I don't think he was at 4, I think he was at 3 colonies. He was at 2 or 3. So, you know, at that point, there's still a chance. You can still win a game of Cosmic, but you have to kind of work for it at that point. You're a little behind. But shit can happen in a game of Cosmic Encounter. And so me and one other guy were at 4 colonies, and so I was, you know, waiting to get to my turn so I could do something. But this guy decides to go in, and I think he got like a wild, so he could pick anybody. So he went up against me, which he was gonna win because the only encounter card in my hand was a negotiation. So I had to play a negotiation card, which means I was automatically gonna lose the encounter. So this was kind of shit, but I was okay with it because he was at like 2. So I was like, all right, I don't care if he gets one, and you know, get rid of this negotiation card. I can get a fresh hand for when my turn comes around. I can kick some ass. But one of the players was playing the Butler alien, and the Butler, basically every round, they get to like take care of all like the menial tasks around the table. So they like draw the cards and they like move the gate and shit, and you know, they're like the bitch of the group for that round. But in return, the offensive player either has to tip them by letting them take a random card from their hand, or the Butler player gets to choose where the ships come from that he's sending into the encounter, which, that's a very big deal. In Cosmic, anytime you just get to actively fuck with somebody's ships on colonies, that's a big deal, because that's how people lose colonies. And you don't ever want to lose a colony in a game of Cosmic. So generally, almost everybody tipped them. But for some reason, this guy, who is just continually a wild card in every single board game we play, he didn't want to tip him. And so he's like, okay, I'll send in 4 ships. And he knew, because we were all yelling at him, we knew exactly what would happen. He lost all of his colonies. He went down to 0. Lost all his foreign colonies because of this. And he just didn't give, he was just grinning. He just didn't give a fuck. He just didn't, and there wasn't like some secret alien power or something where this is what he wanted. No, he just didn't give a shit. Not only did that happen, so he was down to 0 colonies, but he invited everybody on offense. Including the guy who had 4 colonies. And so we're like, you know, I'm outraged. Because I know I'm going to lose this encounter. There is literally nothing I can do about it. And it's just... That's it. You know, we all yelled, we're like... You know, we told him what he's doing. Do you know what you're doing? He's like, oh yeah, whatever. And I'm just like, this is how you no longer get invited to game nights. Like, that is literally unacceptable to me. It's so reprehensible. I can't even explain. I was pretty much shouting. Because I never do that. Because normally, who gives a shit? Whatever. And it wasn't just because I had a potential of winning and the game was just handed. I mean, that's bad. But to just do it knowingly and just not give a shit at all, why would I ever want a person like that on my game table? Ever. And he's just kind of always like that. He's like always just this wild card who just really never gives a shit almost ever about winning. And just does stuff to be wild. And a lot of the times it's just kind of funny and stupid because it doesn't really affect us. It just makes him lose. But something like that, that's just... Like, literally, I have banned people. I've banned people from ever playing Cosmic for basically the same thing. Ziggy's wife is never allowed to play Cosmic with us because she did the exact same thing. Now, the difference was... She doesn't really like board games. And the game was running fairly long. And Ziggy is her husband. And so I don't agree with it. But I can perhaps understand the mentality. In some twisted sense. But this... He wasn't married to the other guy. This was just bullshit. It was quite terrible. I was pretty upset. Because I don't want people like that at my table. And the others agreed that that's just not a good thing. Yeah, and then we finished with Cockroach Poker, where, you know, the wild card dude just does weird shit in Cockroach Poker, and he loses the majority of the time. And so you might say, well, maybe just he doesn't really like board games. He just comes and, you know, he likes to hang out. But no, this guy has gone to multiple board game conventions just on his own. He likes board games. He buys many of them. He's just insane. I mean, we refer to him as an alien. I think he actually is from another planet. I don't think he understands how Earth logic and things like that work. I don't know. It's strange. Anyways. So, on Thursday, roll Mangg, for those that watched it or saw the video or stream length, it was about an hour and a half. So, pretty short session. And I wasn't really I had no idea how long things would be or what was going to happen, but I pretty much said to myself, that pretty much the next TPK that happens, that's when things are probably going to wrap up. And sure enough, it happened fairly quickly. And I did things pretty much by the book, so it was just kind of how it happened. I just didn't fudge that much. But, so they're on the boat. They're heading across to jolly old England. And on the way, Ziggy reads a book, Africa's Dark Sex. Ha 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 ha. And he learns the spell Create Zombie. But here is a key thing. I may have mentioned this at some point in the past. But if you ever run Call of Cthulhu, and like an actual campaign, and you ever give your players spells, never tell them the name of the spell from the book. Okay? If they learn, like, Create Dead, never say, oh, you learned Create Dead. Never do that. Never do that. A, because it's very unlikely that written in this book, at the top of the page, is written Create Dead. And B, you want them to be kind of mystified as to what this spell actually does. The names of spells in the book are generally pretty somewhat descriptive as to what they do. Or at least if they're really good or really bad or something like that. You want them to be a little bit more unsure about what's going on. So I told him it was Raise Deceased. Which is not lying. That's what it does. But it's just not the way they thought it was. They thought it was like Resurrection. Which I don't think exists in Call of Cthulhu. But any spell can exist in Call of Cthulhu if you wanted to. But anyways. So they were very excited about this. And so they get into London. And they decide to seek out... Well, first they have some trouble at the border. Coming into port. Because, of course, a bunch of Americans in Call of Cthulhu coming into town with all their weaponry. They want to keep their guns. And generally, I don't think... It's possible that they can get in with their guns. But as a general, if they just show up and they're like, oh, we can't keep our guns, I'm generally not going to allow them to keep their guns. I mean, if they show no foresight whatsoever, and they don't really try very well to get them through, sneak past, then yeah, I'm not really going to reward that. So, Ziggy said that, you know, since he came through here before with his swords, you know, he clearly had the right permits or something like that, and so he should be fine. And I didn't know the rules for the law for swords or anything like that, so I'm like, alright, whatever. He can have his swords, they'll be dead soon enough. But the other, well, one of them just kind of was like, okay. He tried to bribe him, but that didn't work because he just, no, he failed. And then the third guy tried the most ballsy thing and tried to pass off a forged weapons license to the customs officials whose job, their job is to know if something is legit or not. That is their literal job. This is what they do for a living. So they'll know exactly if it's fake. And he's never seen one before, so he had no idea how to forge this. So yeah, of course it was pretty much like a piece of paper with crayon written on it, like, I can have gun. Signed, the king. So yeah, needless to say, that didn't work. Funnily enough, though, right as he started talking about that, I was reading in the book that a forged license can earn up to, like, 2 years in prison or something like that. Like, I had just read that in the book, and I was like, well, we know how this is going to end. And so, yeah, they were bringing out the handcuffs. He got arrested. He thought about doing something. He thought about blasting him and things like that, but in the end, he decided against it, and so he's just like, okay, I'll get arrested. Which, funnily enough, is exactly what happened last time we did this. It seems nobody can go through the Southampton port without getting arrested. So they went down to the police station. They tried to negotiate to get him out, but they couldn't really do it because, you know, it's a fairly big offense. You're bringing multiple weaponry into the country where it's, you know, it's frowned upon. And not only did he just try to bring it in. If he just tried to brought it in, they would just give him really stern looks, maybe ask a couple questions, and then they would just take his guns. But no, he tried to forge a note. And if I hadn't read that thing, I wouldn't have really made a big deal. But I thought it was funny I read that right at that moment. So they failed to negotiate to get him out, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to make a big deal out of it, because I never like to spend time in prison. So I just had Gulk kind of negotiate his release in a very odd manner. So anyways, he got out. So they decided to go to the Scoop with Mickey Mahoney, decide what happened, figure out what happened there. And so after a little beating around the bush, they eventually found out the articles that Jackson Elias was interested in. So that's the 3 newspaper articles, one of which is actually important to the plot, 2 of which are just red herrings designed to kill players. And sure enough, they decided to go for one of the red herrings. Okay, perfect. We can get to this TPK, I guess. So they decided to go to the paintings, which is the best red herring in, like, the game. So they go for this house where there's this painter painting really weird, odd, eldritch horror shit. And, so the 3 of them go in there. And they go up to where the paintings are. And they're like, okay, we'll look at some of the paintings. I'm like, alright. Now, as per I really did this by the book, because as per the book, you're not really, they recommend not saying, or not doing sanity rolls for each painting. They recommend just going through the paintings until the players decide to stop, and then counting up how many they looked at and doing that many sanity rolls to make it really fucking evil. And it is evil. It's just cruel. It's just a cruel thing, but it worked at the time. So they only looked at 6, surprisingly. But that's enough. When you're low on sanity, that's enough, because each one, if you fail, is a 1d3. So that's a potential loss of 18 sanity. Now, they didn't lose 18, but they lost close to that. And one of them went permanently insane. And one of them went temporarily insane. Or actually, maybe 2 of them did. Yeah, 2 of them did. So one of them went permanently insane, and he's just like, okay, that's it. You're done. So normally when somebody goes permanently insane, if it was part of a longer campaign, obviously the character would still exist. He just doesn't just disappear. So he still exists, but generally I just take control of him and then I do bad shit. I don't think it's ever happened so far. But in this case, I was like, okay, your character, he's permanently insane. He's just, his mind is snapped. You tell me what he does. And he decided to just paint on the walls in his own shit and blood. And okay, perfect. That's very insane. The characters that went temporarily insane, one of them went catatonic. So he just kind of went into the fetal position and just stopped. But then Ziggy's character, and this was just a luck of the roll. Like I just rolled on the random table, but it was so great. Homicidal mania. So this Scottish Catholic priest with dual swords decides that, you know, everything here is just evil and needs to be purged. And so there was purging. He pretty much butchered the catatonic guy in one big slash of his sword. So that was pleasant. And then eventually butchered the guy painting in his own shit and blood. And so then he broke out of his mania. So he was no longer homicidal, but now, you know, he's just he just butchered his 2 companions in cold blood in some sort of mania. So yeah, he wasn't feeling too great about that. So he decided to get out of there, get out of the house. And on the way down, he bumps into the old woman that they had met first, who of course turns out to be a lizard person that can cast magic spells, because it's Call of Cthulhu. And so a little duel happens there. And surprisingly, this lizard person, who does know magic and could melt the person, didn't get off really any spells, and so not much health there, and so yes, he butchered the lizard person as well. And then the other guy, the actual painter, came rushing at him with a butcher's knife, trying to kill him, but he cut him down too as well. So it was quite impressive, I must say. I didn't expect all that. So then he goes back. He actually steals the horrible painting that sucks you into the lizard world. He stole it, but he didn't get sucked into it. So he goes back to like a safe house with Gulk, and he decides that he needs Nodin's guidance. And so as far as his character knows, this mask only points him to Nodin's, who is, in his eyes, a good deity. So he puts on the mask, and I didn't even roll. This was actually, I fudged it. Chances were very likely he wouldn't see Nodin's. It was a 1 in 4 chance, but I was like, nah, it's too perfect. It's pretty much over. I'll just screw with him. So I read him like, I gave him like the start of the Nodin's vision, where he's just on this nice plane. But then, of course, I cut to the Yog-Sothoth vision. And he lost like 47 sanity, and he went permanently insane. And that's how we ended. Which is not, it's not a great ending. It's not at all. But, you know, I'm not really a DM. I don't love to do it that much, and I prefer to play so much more. So someday maybe we'll pick it up, and I'm sure I'm not done DMing Call of Cthulhu, because it's the one thing that I kind of do DM. I don't know if we'll go back to masks in the next like 15 years. If I do DM Call of Cthulhu for them, it'll probably be just something different. But yeah. So one of the guys, Phil, decided that he would pick up the job of DMing, and his favorite RPG system of all time, I guess, is Fate. So he wants to do something with Fate, which is fine with me because I'm looking to do more with Fate. And so, you know, the genre, the setting, whatever, it's all open. Whatever we want to decide on, that's what we'll do. And so I mentioned the superhero thing, because that's what we're doing online on Sundays, supposedly. It hasn't happened yet, but supposedly. And so I mentioned that to him, and we've got people interested in that, and he started reading the rule book, and he thought it was interesting. So I might be part of 2 superhero games, although I don't know if the one online will ever happen, because Mert is Mert. But yeah, I'm looking forward to playing some Fate, especially with somebody that actually knows how the rules work. It could be good. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. But that probably won't be for a few weeks. Next week we'll be doing some sort of board game, maybe another time story scenario, and then week after Ziggy's gone, and then the week after that we're in Gen Con. Gen Con, baby. Very excited about that. Yeah. So Pokemon Go. Yeah. Yeah. Last week, when I talked about Pokemon Go, I played it for literally like an hour. But now I've played it a lot more than that. And I can continue to say that it is by far the biggest gaming phenomenon of my life. It might be just the biggest phenomenon in general. It's nuts. It's nuts. I mean, I went on Thursday, or maybe it was Wednesday. Probably Wednesday. I went down to kind of the downtown of a nearby city. Downtown is somewhat of a rough term. It's not like a city. I mean, it's not like New York or anything like that. It's just the urban happening area of a nearby city. And yeah, there were a lot of people. There were hundreds of people. Every single one was just had their phones out, was just talking about Pokemon. Is like, and you could just hear shouts of like, oh, there's Chop over here, oh, you know, and just people constantly just yelling and talking nonstop all night about Pokemon. And it's crazy. It's crazy. It was crazy. And then last night, I went downtown to Milwaukee, which is a city you may have actually heard of. You know, one of the biggest cities in Wisconsin. And that was even more crazy. Because it's funny just how, like, word of mouth has just spread about certain spots in the city. Like, you gotta go here. Just go here. This is where you go. And so we went down to this one park, and there were just, oh man, there were just so many people. And it didn't really set in right away. There were cars everywhere, so I was like, okay, there's a lot of people here. But we started walking and walking, and like, okay, there's a bunch of people in sight. But then there was like this little, not a grotto, I don't know what you would call it. It was kind of this little like hole. Like an, not an, what's the word? There's a word for what it was. It was like a crater. I don't know. There were like these sets of stairs that went down into this little sunken area. That was like circular shaped, and it was just jam packed down there. Because if you sat down in there, you were in the 3 Pokestops at one time, and they all had lures, and so there was a bunch of like kind of seating, and it was just nuts. I tried to take a picture, but I didn't want to be awkward about it. But it was crazy. There was just so many people. And then we kept going throughout the whole park, and it was like a zoo. It was like literally just a zoo of people. Every single one had their phones out, talking about Pokemon. And I was just like, you know, how many other places in America is this happening right now? Just across the entire country. So many people. And it was so funny occasionally to just stop and look around. And just look around at the sight of what was going on. You would just see people just standing, stopped in the middle of just a field, holding up their phone and just looking dumb, I guess. Yeah, you look dumb. You look dumb when you're doing it. And it's just like, well, I mean, I'm doing the exact same thing, so I can't talk much, but it was just so funny to look around at this. It's like, yeah, you know, we're all outside, we're exercising, but still, it's odd. And when something really, you know, when something really uncommon showed up in the park, like, word spread. Word spread about it. Like, a Magmar showed up, and, you know, like, word just went down the whole park. Like, oh, there's a Magmar way up there by the lighthouse. There's a Magmar over there. There's a Sandshrew up here. It was quite the experience. I don't know how long this will last. I have no idea. Nobody knows. That was a topic of conversation I heard a couple times. Like, how long do you think this is going to last? I don't know. Because in America right now, you know, it's summer. It's the time to be outside. it's time to just roam around a park and find Pokemon and, you know, hang out and stuff like that. But in winter, you know, especially Wisconsin, people are not going to be roaming around a park. Not at all. So I don't know what's going to happen to Pokemon Go. I trust that at that point, battles will be implemented. So there might be specific indoor locations that's like, oh, go here to battle. You know, this is the battling zone. It's possible, and then, you know, trading will be there, and hopefully some other stuff gets implemented that just continues to encourage people to play. But for now, yeah, I can't get over how nuts it is as just a phenomenon. Like, it was just, yeah. So we went downtown to get some dinner. We went to a place called Bel Air, a Mexican restaurant. Actually, really, really solid food. They apparently go there all the time, but I never go downtown because I don't like people. But really solid Mexican food. And then, yeah, we went to the park for a couple hours, and we were only there for a couple hours because at 10 o'clock the park closes, and so the park rangers were just like, they were on the prowl, man. They actually were driving through the park in their cars with sirens going, not sirens, their lights were flashing. They had the bullhorn running, and they were like, you know, park closes at 10. If you are here, you will be given a $250 ticket. Your car will be towed. All this sorts of shit. Like, they were enforcing that nonsense. Because apparently a lot of people have been complaining because people have been staying in past 10 and drinking alcohol and smoking the weed, smoking all the marijuanas. So they don't like that. So yeah, they were cracking down because the day before it was a $30 fine, but last night it was a $250 fine. But when they were driving past, us, we were kind of sitting there, and we were sitting next to this group of black dudes, and one of them started playing "Fuck the Police" on his phone. I thought that was pretty humorous. I certainly wouldn't do that, but that guy, he knew the risks. Anyways, then we decided to hit up some bars, which I wasn't nuts about, but okay. Just so many people. Just too many people for me. It just makes me nervous. You never know what these people are going to do. They get all drunk and hopped up on drugs. I don't like it. I just want to hunt Pokemon. But really, the biggest issue was battery life. Like, everybody complains about it. And I even have a battery pack. I chewed through the entire thing, and I just... My biggest complaint is my phone, you know, you put it down to 0 brightness. When my phone is at 0 brightness, I want the screen to pretty much be off. You know, I want it to be like an original Game Boy screen at that point. I want there to be no backlight. But it was still, like, perfectly bright. And it just, no. Don't you understand how batteries work? Can't afford all this brightness. And we ended at some much quieter bar. We played some rounds of pool, which is good. I really would like to invest in a pool table. Or billiards, if you're from some weird country. I like the game. You know, it's got that geometry, but it's also kind of dexterity, and it's something I could really get into. So, yeah. I should get a pool table at some point. Yeah, and that was that. A solid night. A solid night. You wouldn't want to do it every night, but once a week, there are worse ways to spend an evening. As for German relatives, because I'm sure you're just wondering why I haven't told you any juicy stories yet. I haven't seen them. I haven't seen them since last Friday. It was the last time I talked to one of them. While they were here, they just they left at like 7:30 in the morning. They stayed out all night, and then when they would get back, they would just sit in their trailer in my backyard, or in my front yard, and not ever come in. And then on like Tuesday this week, they decided that they were going to go stay with some other German relatives for the week, and they'll come back tomorrow. And I think they just don't like me and my brother, because we don't speak German. They don't like that. And also, we don't do anything. So there's that. So we're basically just some American strangers. Whereas the other people, they're at least German. You know, my other relatives are at least German. So there's some, you know, my brother and I are not German at all. I speak French. I don't even speak nothing German. Nine. I know nine. Nine. Scheiße. Yeah. So they'll be back tomorrow, apparently. But that leaves like, it's like 1 week. It's like 1 week more. So, yeah, what do you want me to say? We all knew what would happen. I already said that. That's what's gonna happen. Maybe, I don't know. You know, just spend some time with them while they're here, I guess, and that'll be that. Yeah. It's not really a major concern, I guess. I guess. It's all about Pokemon now. I don't got time for females and relatives, family. Fuck it, Pokemon. It does need some work, though, that Pokemon. Because I actually don't want to level up. Because I have no interest in battling gyms because of how stupid it is. And so the only thing that leveling gets me then is just it makes it harder to catch Pokemon. And that's not good, so I don't want that. So, yeah, they got their work cut out for them, but now it seems like they're only concerned about getting it out in every country. So they can just make more money. Greedy bastards! There's only one country that matters. That's America. Make sure it's perfect in America, then you can worry about other countries owned by America. I'm just kidding. Maybe. Anyways, I think that's going to wrap us up here. So, yeah. Expect more of the usual stuff on the channel. Along with maybe top 10 and... I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But anyways, my name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. I'll see you fine folks next week.